Stephanie Chung, your go-to for all things marketing, mindset, and manifestation. I grew my online business from 0 to beyond 6 figures in 8 months. My purpose is to empower women to step into the highest, most aligned versions of themselves. If you are ready to take charge of your life, learn how to design a wildly successful business, and leave limiting beliefs behind, you've come to the right place. You will learn the actionable tips and step-by-step strategies on money, manifestation, and social media. It's time to step into your role as boss, to raise your vibration and tap into your unlimited potential today. Welcome to the Social Reset Podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me, my friend and my Magicmind student, Anne. Anne is a somatic sex relationship, love, leadership coach. She's truly an embodiment of the feminine in so many beautiful ways. She's also an incredible leader, an incredible thought leader, perspective shifter in this industry, in the world, in her community. And I'm really excited to have her on the podcast to talk about all things love, relationships, sex, intimacy, business, business as the whole human, business as the whole woman, right? All of it being linked together in the way that we show up and our identities. And just through the last several months in Magicmind and just witnessing her evolutions and her shift and the way that she's shown up in her business and the courageous, brave steps that she's taken. I mean, you really have to hear it from her. And this is also something I would love to hear, is like her perspective of moving through these identity shifts and dropping deeper into her magic and her movement and what it looks like to recommit in a way as well. So, Anne, thank you for being here. I'm going to have you introduce yourself to the listeners.
Okay, well, thank you. That was an amazing introduction. I'm like, I need to introduce myself the way you introduced me, which is also your gift. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm Anne. I'm a somatic sex, love, and relationship coach. I really work with ambitious, heart and soul-led women to have better sex, create deeper, more nourishing relationships, and to reclaim their relationship with their sexuality and their pleasure to make the world a better place. I truly believe that pleasure and love and our relationships, our sensuality, our sexuality are pathways towards each of our dharmas, each of our creative genius, and that a woman who is full of her pleasure, full of her love, is also so available to step into her gifts and what she's meant to give to the world at large, which I think gives people a lot of that deeper fulfillment in life that they're looking for. So all those things excite me to no end.
Oh, yes. I love that so much. That's so, so beautiful. And I've always, even before like jumping into Magicmind and, we've known each other for quite a while, I've always admired your work and your embodiment in your work, and just how like you can clearly tell like when Anne is talking about, a living orgasmic life and embodiment and stepping into your pleasure, like you can tell like it's written all over her face. Like this is the work that she's meant to do, right? And like on this podcast, we talk about this all of the time, is like there's nothing more powerful than someone who's dropped into their purpose, right? And I feel like a lot of my work as a business coach, like it really is purpose work. It really is bringing women back to what they're meant to be doing in this lifetime and the gifts and the magic and the medicine that they have. So, Anne, I'd love to hear from your story or your background. What are some things that you've moved through, challenges, lessons that you've navigated to get to really solidifying in your purpose here where you are in your business? Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think just like most coaches or most people that help people with things, I call it the main sacred text and the main teacher of my life is my own life. And so I'm Vietnamese American. I was born into this like patriarchal anti-women culture when it comes to pleasure, when it comes to sex, when it comes to love. I have the whole immigrant family, like good Asian girl duties and
Yep.
perfectionist things that I moved through growing up. But I've always been such a lover. I've always been so interested in love and in relationships and intimacy. I just recorded my first podcast episode, which you helped me find the courage to do. And
Yay.
I talk about, remembering having crushes when I was a kid and just always wanting to figure that out, always having that yearning for love, for pleasure, for relationships.
Mm.
But I grew up in a household where I witnessed domestic abuse. I recreated a lot of the toxic relationship patterns that I saw growing up. In high school, I was in a very abusive relationship. In my 20s, I went through toxic relationships, situationships, trying really to use sex to get validation, to get partnership, to have people be close to me, but I never centered myself in sex. I never centered myself in relationships. I always
Mm.
gave everything away in order to get love. I always felt like pleasing my partner and performing well was more the center of my pleasure and my sexuality. And it wasn't until my mid 20s ish that I finally started to ask myself the question of, wait, how can I make this pleasurable and good for me? And I searched high and low, and it was really hard to find answers at that time. But finally, I found my teacher, Layla Martin, and she introduced this completely revolutionary idea that my pleasure and my sexuality could be not only a deep source of my power, but a journey of spiritual awakening and spiritual
Mhm.
knowing. And I have always also been interested in spirituality ever since I was a kid. But I think I denied it because of like internalized white supremacy, being sort of, this is before all of the spiritual things were on Instagram and on TikTok, like all the spiritual
Yeah.
teachers were still like, Deepak Chopra and like Wayne Dyer, like old people who like weren't cool, quote unquote. And I was always just like a mystic at heart. There was something that called me towards spirituality. So when I saw this merging of sex and pleasure and self-love and spirituality, I was like, sign me the fuck up. Like, yes, this is the thing I've been looking for. And I'm someone who just dives headfirst into things. And so my teacher had a coach training. It was a super intense coach training where you spend the beginning of it really doing all of the practices, going on your own really deep sexual empowerment, like tantric journey. And in that program, I had my Kundalini awakening. I reclaimed
Mm.
so many different parts of my pleasure, my sexuality, and I called in my healthy relationship that is now 6 years in the making, a relationship I never thought could exist or that was possible. I fell in love with my body. I had orgasms that made me feel like I touched the entire universe. And when I was done
Yes.
with the program, I just had to shout it from the rooftops to anyone who would listen.
Mm.
Simultaneously, too, before I did the coach training, I also worked with a coach who at the time was one of the first people who was talking about trauma and somatics and healing through your body. I started working with her after sort of like my third not healthy relationship, when I finally stopped and almost like got on my knees to the universe and was like, okay, I cannot have my whole life be like this. I need help.
Yeah.
And so I was also really versed and had gone through a lot of really deep somatic trauma resolution. And so now my work marries that trauma resolution with the tantric pleasure and all of that. And as I've grown, and I think a lot of us have collectively in our awareness, I've also seeded in the view of intersectional feminism and a lot of indigenous knowledge around our healing work, then serving the collective and being a way to also dismantle the internalized systems of oppression that live inside of us. And so my work really kind of lives at the intersection of all those things. And then business wise, there's so much there. But I know we're kind of talking about both of these tracks. So I wanted to give a view of the business part, which is I
Yeah.
grew up, the quote unquote model minority, perfectionist, like always wanted to just super exceed at everything I did to make sure that my mom, being a refugee was all worth it. And so when I started my business, I was pretty successful out of the gate. But I was really pushing myself super hard. And I feel like I was also chasing this sort of lifestyle type of um, golden nugget that was more popular, I think, a few years back, that I think a lot of the industry is sort of waking up out of. And so I grinded super hard. I was, I was deeply connected to my work, but I was also not being very caring towards myself. And I
Mm,
was in my what I would call my maiden years of also honestly, while being connected to my work, also being connected to some of the wrong things, obsessing over money goals, obsessing over a certain lifestyle. And it just sucked the soul out of me. And so
mm,
I went through a really big depression. I had to take a sabbatical to heal. It was like to the point where I was so burnt out and depressed, I couldn't work anymore. It was terrifying because I also
mm.
felt disconnected from my work, being a pleasure coach and then being in clinical depression where I had anhedonia, which is actually not being able to feel pleasure at all. It was devastating, disorienting. And I really, actually, a lot of my work with the goddess, with the feminine, with my spiritual practice, with all of my experiences, and great support all around me is what got me through that. And so I've been on a journey of really rebuilding my business into what I would say is my version of like mature feminine devotion and service, and a reconnection and a deeper reclaiming of my purpose. And that's what I've been
Yeah.
navigating for the past year or so. And it's all finally coming together.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say those are the two tracks: sex and love, and then business entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. I don't feel like I've heard it all in that way of it all, because it all, like, I say this a lot, how we do one thing is how we do everything. Everything in our lives are interconnected. We're not compartmentalizing aspects of our life. Like, all of it feeds into one another. And yeah, and just hearing you go from this place where, okay, it was like, well, let me try to earn the affection and all the things that I feel like I should create and that I should do. And I also went through my own journey of that as well, is like, let me bring home the best grades for my parents and for, all the things I felt like I should do as a good, obedient Chinese daughter, and then feeling like, oh my gosh, am I going to be good if I don't bring home straight A's? Am I going to be loved if I don't, go to all of these extracurricular activities that my mom had me in that were, like the math and the reading and the piano and the all the things, and it was like, oh my gosh, it was this energy and culture of excellence I felt like I had to uphold. And if I didn't, then maybe I wouldn't be loved, right? And not that that was ever like directly told to me, but it's like as children, right? Like we're very much programmed to be the adults that hustle, that
Mhm.
go into overdrive, because then it's not just grades, then it's money, it's sales, it's clients, it's getting
Yeah.
into a good job and having a good salary and getting the promotion. It's like we just replace one thing for another.
Yeah.
And
And even
yeah,
with sex, right? It's the same thing. Okay, if I perform well and I do well, and like all of those same expectations we put into
yeah.
sex lives, we put into our love lives. So, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things. And we both, I mean, for you, it was like, I hadn't heard it in that way of like, oh, this it really like affected every area of you where you weren't even able to experience pleasure. I went through a percentage of that when I also burnt out in my business, and I started experiencing these weird physical symptoms like vertigo, and I like couldn't see straight. I would get these headaches. I would be so like, it was just like I had never, put something so much of my energy into something before. And so I think what happens is like we move through, and a lot of this is also from my perspective and from my experience too, is like clearing the past of like our lineage and those messages and narratives and stories that we hold on to, not just up here but in here, like in our bodies, this lineage of scarcity and trauma and war and oppression and exclusion, right? Like the Chinese Exclusion Act was not that long ago. And just like knowing and having all of these things in our bodies as we are attempting to create something new and big, oftentimes for the first times in our families, right? Being like the first entrepreneur, or the first woman entrepreneur. Yeah, it's a lot. And so just hearing you move through all of that is so beautiful. I would love to talk about we've talked a lot about woman in love, right? Going from maiden to this like empress, goddess, like magnetic woman energy of like, I'm in my power. I'm in my pleasure. I know who I am. I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for me because this is my purpose. Like, I'd love to talk deeper about that and what that means to you, and also what some of those shifts might look like for someone who is maybe still in that like coming out of the maiden energy and wanting to step deeper into what I call their magnetism, right? It's their pleasure, their power, their purpose, right? Who you are. Yeah, I'd love to hear about that from you.
Yeah. So, Woman in Love was the name that I was toying with for my one on one coaching. And the thing that just came to me really was a woman in love. To be a woman in love is one of the most revolutionary things that you could be. Because to be a woman in love, to be a woman who is fiercely in love with herself and who is open and surrendered and embodied
Mm,
enough to deeply receive love and then
yeah.
to give love over to the world from her passions, from the gifts that are inside of her, it completely is the deepest journey of, yeah, dismantling all of these internalized systems of oppression within us. And so to be a woman in love is to be like a walking, talking, breathing revolution, right? To
Mm,
be a woman who's deeply in love with a man is like one of the most healing medicines that you could give towards patriarchy. To be a woman who's deeply in queer love is like, the biggest medicine for our society that, can be so harmful to queer people. To be a woman in love with your own body is to be in direct resistance and direct like defiance, and also to be the medicine for patriarchy and consumerism and capitalism and like all of those different things. Not to mention, a woman in love is someone who's just a fucking joy and pleasure to be around, who is pouring like from internal, like from her cup out into the world, into, I mean, I see it in you with the way that that overflows into the way that you parent, that overflows into the way that you are taking care of your ancestors, that overflows into the way that you are so generous and abundant with your gifts with your clients, right? It's just, to me, it is the absolute fuel. And I think it's the biggest power source that any woman, any person can really harness within themselves. And my teacher Layla Martin says this. She says, a woman's sexuality is the most powerful force on earth. Think about it. It runs advertising. There have been wars created over it. Like, people lose their shit over it. It drives the entire film
yeah.
industry. It drives all of media. It drives everything. So, a woman's sexuality is the most powerful force on the planet to everyone except for the woman herself. And
Mm,
I
chills.
think it's about time that we change that, and that,
Ugh.
to be a woman in love means all of that. But I also think that there is another layer of it, which is, to me, I'm really interested right now in being the erotic woman. And that is a maturity of my work. I think in our maiden years, so just for everyone to know, I talk about the maiden to mother to crone archetypes as the stages of womanhood, that if we were in a society, an actual like matriarchal kind to women society, those would be the rites of passage of growing through our womanhood into our full potential through life that we don't receive. So a lot of us are taught to stay in what my other teacher, Sarah Durham Wilson, would call our wounded maiden. And our wounded maiden is, you can think of it as like the princess in the fairy tale. It is sort of our younger selves where we're really not sure of who we are. We're searching, we're like going out into the world, reaching externally to try to figure out, who am I, trying to get love, trying to get sex, trying to get pleasure, trying to claim our power through the external world, right? If I am a certain way and I look a certain way and I am maybe like, embody like the baddie I see on Instagram, then I'll get love, then I'll get this, then I'll get that, right?
Yeah.
And growing into mother is kind of going from the external game into the internal game. And maiden years are great. So there's like healthy maiden who, so wounded maiden obviously is like taking all that toxic stuff. Healthy maiden is the part in us that does go out and get all of these experiences to like figure out who you are. And she's a risk taker, and she's that energy of like new life and sort of like, fuck it, I'm gonna go for shit, right? We love our maidens. And maturing into mother is really about, okay, now I'm centering and knowing who I am.
Mm,
Um, in what my teacher also says, in maiden, life happens to you, in mother, life happens through you. And
mm,
so I really see mother as becoming the tree, like the tree of life. So it's rooting down into who you really are. It is staying so devoted and deep and rooted in like your vision for life, your vision for the world, your vision for sex, your vision for relationships, and then reaching up and out to like the sun and the moon and the stars, and then extending your branches out to be the shade under which other people can come sit and come to your tree, and to blossom all of your blooms and your fruit, right? To be the giver of those things. And so in very practical ways, when it comes to love and sex and relationships, I think the work really is to move from what are all these external things I've been told about how I get love and sex and pleasure, and coming into the internal game of what are my beliefs around love and sex and pleasure? What is
mm,
the embodiment that I want to be in of it? What role does it play in my life? And how do I do all of the internal work? One of the concepts that I teach is to be my own best lover, to be in such sacred relationship with my own pleasure, my own body, my own orgasm, that it is that power source that becomes the tree. It moves through you, right? Sex doesn't happen to you, love doesn't happen to you. Sex moves through you. Relationship, love moves through you,
oh,
right?
so good. Yes.
And so I think that rite of passage is something I'm so passionate about teaching. And I think that really is the woman in love. And, it is growing into mother, is what my teacher calls like the actual full bloom in your life. Our maiden years were the
Mm,
bud, right? We're the bud that's collecting all the nutrients and like getting ready to pop, and actually growing into mothers when you're the full bloom, the full flower. And then looking forward, it's becoming the crone, becoming the one who then passes the wisdom on to the next generations.
Oh, yes. I just need a moment to like soak all of that in. That's so good. And also the way you speak is like chef's kiss. It's like it's so beautiful and it's so artistic and yet also like yes, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the visuals. I'm seeing like the peony unfolding in all of its layers, and yeah, it's so beautiful. I'm gonna have you talk to Alaska as she gets into her teenage years and
Yes, yes. And that too, right? Our rituals for our maidens. I'm so excited to teach all of that or to share
oh,
all of that. And she's so
yes.
lucky to have you. And this is what happens, right? Like, I know you're on the path. We are in this community, in this, I would call it like our matriarchal circle with one another. And when we have this, yeah, like the next generation, we get to walk them through these rites of passage with the relationships to our own bodies that we never got, right? If you're
Yeah.
listening to this, you probably never got the rite of passage of, okay, and now you're growing into your sexuality, and here are the gifts of it, and here's what's so beautiful, and your body is changing, and you're discovering all these things about your body, and you're interested in love, and here, let us usher you through it, right? And so a lot of my work with women is sort of reestablishing that experience of like, here, let's be the wise elders who teach you the truth about your pleasure, the truth about your
Yeah.
body, the truth about sex, the truth about love, the truth about your power and your voice and your purpose, so that yeah, we can walk each other towards the kind of world that we want to see.
Oh, this is so beautiful. And yeah, I love it so, so much. I've always, just love, love, love your work, this work, and how it's shaping everything. Like I truly believe like this is the new paradigm. This is the new way of, showing up and showing and expressing and guiding the new generations and conversations that we have around sexuality and our bodies. And I was in a women's circle a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about our cycles and we went around sharing our first period stories, and some were funny, and some were like, oh, like lighthearted, and some were really sweet. And then there were a couple of women that it was actually two women, and this is the first time I'd ever heard this happening, and then two women in the same circle, which I'm sure happens with so many more women. But two of these women said that they got their period and they hid it from their families for like 2, 3 years because they didn't have any knowledge or education. They felt like it was something shameful. And it was just like this, just like parents either just like avoiding the conversation or expecting them to just kind of know and figure that out, which was kind of like me with my parents. My mom never really had like the sex talk with me or either of my parents. They just kind of expected that I would know and expected that I would know about protection and all of these things. And just the way that that's been so many of our stories around sexuality and religious trauma for me, growing up in the church and having all these narratives around what a good girl should be, a pure Christian girl that saves herself for marriage and does all of these godly things to grow up and be a godly wife. It's like everything that you're sharing in your work is about redefining what that looks like when you're actually connected to your purpose, to your power, to your pleasure, to living a truly orgasmic life that is like, again, back to the woman in love. Like, if you are in love, you are connected to universal love, like the spirit of love, right? And it's not the spirit of, you know, restriction and boxing you in and making you small so that like we got to make sure you can't dress like that because of how other people are going to respond, all these things that a lot of us, most of us have heard growing up.
Yeah.
If we have this relationship with ourselves and with our bodies, it's never, ever, ever too late, right? It never is too late to drop in and be that woman in love with yourself and with your life and with your pleasure. This
Yeah.
literally changes the world.
Yeah. Yes, that is the mission. That is the call. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would say too, another aspect of it that I think has grown deeper for me over these past years, because we're talking a little bit about like reinventing the work or growing deeper into my work. Just for context for the listeners, I went through clinical depression for the first time ever, a couple of years ago. And that was also one of the biggest self-love journeys that I've ever been on. It was really like, it was actually, I would call it a maiden to mother initiation, which again, like the view of my depression through the mythical sort of tantric goddess lens, is that what had happened for me was that I had to shrink away from the world. Like I gained weight, I lost sort of the identity, the shiny outside identity of like, I'm the pleasure girl, I'm the fun girl, I'm the one who like, is always having a good time. And I was forced into this place of like loving my darkness and almost like
Mm,
loving who I am without that external shiny veneer always being on, and always
yeah.
feeling like the performance of that is how I got love, or even how I got clients, or even how I was
Yeah.
worthy in the world. And I think for me, it's important for me to name that as a woman in love, and to name that. That's why I think eros, eroticism, is something that feels so rich for me right now, because to me, it's also reinstating this multifaceted view of what a woman is. And a lot of this is really driven by my connection also with my tantric lineage, which works with many of the different Hindu goddesses. And in the Hindu tradition, in Tantra, the view is that you are actually the goddess herself. Like you are divine. It is a non dual tradition. And the goddesses in the Hindu pantheon are like Kali. They are Kali is the goddess of like destruction and rage, and she has her tongue out and she slays demons and she burns away anything in you that isn't true. There are
Yeah.
goddesses of eroticism, there's goddesses of play and all of that, but there are also crone goddesses, right? Like, I think for me, being a woman in love is also embracing the full range and true power of what womanhood is, which also is our rage, our passion, our grief, our shadows, like that that mother inside of us that like
Mm,
sees what's wrong in the world and like wants to scream out and cry out and be like, fuck no, this has to change, right?
yeah.
And I'm sure if you're a listener, you have felt this before. You have felt the fire of the goddess being like, fuck no, I cannot do relationships like this anymore. Fuck no, I cannot do like my like performative sex anymore. I can't do any of that anymore. And so yeah, I think I just wanted to add that sort of like realm into it. It's really
Mm,
like this full embrace. And I think Eros captures that, because Eros to me is passion. It is like that rich, sort of like bubbling life force energy. And that can be found in like the darkest, swampy places of you, and also like the most bright and
yeah.
airy and fairy and like all of that parts of you. So I just
Yeah.
felt like it was important to name that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because I think that when we do connect with that part of ourselves versus like the good girl who just stays quiet and speaks when spoken to and never breaks any rules, that isn't someone who actually changes anything in history. Right.
Mhm.
And it's like, both of us have used our platforms for social justice and causes and speaking up on what's happening around the world, right? And I think part of that is connecting to this part of you that's like, oh, well, I was taught to be silent and not say anything and just kind of appease people and to be the people pleaser. But it's like, no, when you actually step into that embodiment, we do have to create some type of reconstruction and actually like getting some people upset and speaking the truth in order for there to be change. There's never been any world change or any leaders who've gone down in history who've just followed all the rules, done all the things, and stayed really quiet and soft, right? It's like we have that energy for a reason because we can't stand by and allow there to be injustice, right? Like it sparks something in us
Yeah.
because we recognize that something needs to happen, something needs to change, we need to do something about it. I think that's such an empowering part of us, and then also like the waves in which we experience those emotions and as it shows up in our business as well, right? Like in the past several months in Magicmind, you have completely shifted your like your perspective on sales, the way that you show up, right? Like your kind of business model, what you're focusing on, selling your one-on-ones, right? And at a certain point towards the end of last year, I'll let you share it in your own words, but it kind of felt like, okay, am I going to keep doing this? Like, what's going on? What's happening? Where do I want this to go? And then in January, having like, sales that were coming in, clients re-signing and having that kind of reignited fire. I would love to hear about that, that reignition for you in your business going from do I burn this thing down to like, oh my gosh, I'm celebrating a huge month in January.
Yeah. So I think the place that brought me to, can I do this? Like, am I going to burn it down? Was going through a really personal upheaval and having to take that time off. That also meant that I accrued a ton of debt, and that was super stressful. I think that's something that people do not talk about enough in the coaching industry, right? I
Yeah.
had invested, and then I had to live off of my savings, and then I had to reinvest to, get back into my business. And as a lot of, you can call it dark night of the soul, you can call it an underworld journey, like these growth periods go, you cannot predict the timeline on these. The
Yeah.
healing from it is gonna go faster than your maiden, or maybe like, capitalist driven inner self would want it to be, right? People are like, okay, let me do my healing for like a week, and then, I'll be back just in time to do this next launch or whatever. It doesn't work
Yeah.
like that. And there were a lot of things. I think there was the deepening of my work because of what I'd gone through and having to navigate this re-emergence from the underworld. Anytime we go through a really big initiation, you also go through a rebirth. And I was in that middle period for a long time. And it was really hard. It's hard to run a business when you're like, who the fuck am I? What is my work? What am I passionate about now? Maybe some of the things that you taught before, you're like, that doesn't really resonate, or I don't really want to teach it like that anymore. My values have changed. I've changed. I think, like, just for context, I'm now in year like 3, 4, 5 of my entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's a maiden to mother journey of entrepreneurship. I think a lot of entrepreneurs who are this far into the years have gone through at least one of these. And I don't think that we
Mhm.
talk about it enough. And I really was struggling financially and with my work, with my identity. And it just felt like too much. It just felt like, holy shit. And I think it was a really sobering moment of, okay, Anne, this is really what entrepreneurship is. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and having a nomadic life and doing whatever the fuck you want to do all the time, right? It was like a reality check for my maiden. And it was a moment
Mhm.
of, okay, like, if I know the joys and I know the things that are so beautiful about having a business, and now I have a really sobering reality of also what it takes that isn't easy, the things that
Yeah.
can be really hard. And I actually had a conversation with my mom because I'm also in a certain age where I want to start a family. I'm living in the Bay Area. Shit is so expensive. And, she just told me, luckily, I have, even though my mom is an Asian mom, we very stubbornly, lots of personal growth, lots of applying my work to our relationship. We've gotten to a point where she's really loving, but she did say to me, Anne, like, you wouldn't be a failure if you got a corporate job, if you wanted to, you know, make easy, consistent money from that. And it doesn't mean you have to give up your dream. It doesn't mean that you don't have to help people forever, but like you could do that. And I think this happens a lot with growth, and I think times where we're really like pushed into just embodying our next level identity, our next edge. It's
Hmm.
almost like you have to go all the way to the other side. Like give your nervous system the permission to go all the way to the other side. Like I tell my friends this when they're like in a like, do I stay with this person or do I break up with them? Like, and they're
Mm.
avoiding so much breaking up. I'm like, what if you just let yourself entertain, even in your nervous system, leaving? What would that actually mean? Right.
Yeah.
When we have that scope, I think we can make clearer decisions, even though it's painful. And so I had to go all the way to like, what if I did quit? What if I did get a corporate job? What if I did go back? But also, I know myself. And I mean, I led protests at Google about like their sexual assault cases. Like, I hate,
Wow.
like, I just knew myself. I would never be able to, as soon as I came back into a corporate job, I'd be dreaming of how to leave, right? I think when you have a
Yeah.
purpose, when you have a dharma inside of your heart, if you're listening to this, there's something calling you to be a coach. Like, that's just never really gonna go away. And that doesn't mean like going back is bad or anything like that, but I just
Mhm.
know that desire would never die. And so I decided to find the easiest, most doable thing. And that was like my mantra through depression. What's the easiest, most doable thing that I could reach for that would be any sort of nourishment for myself during that time? So I did the same thing with my business. What's the easiest, most doable way to reconnect to the pleasure, to what I love in my business? And for me, it has always been my clients. Always, always, always. There has never been a single fucking day in my coaching career that I haven't loved coaching. I love it, you know? And
Yeah.
so I put out an offer that was 15 one-on-one sessions. I think it's really good for people to hear this too. I had made 150 grand. I sell 10K coaching packages, but I was humble enough to say, I just want people in the door. I was clear in my heart. I just want to connect to my service. So I sold 15 one-on-one sessions for 147 each. And I think that's also just a good lesson to people. Like, don't let your ego get in your way. Sometimes when it's aligned and when it's coherent, not when you're doing it out of like, oh, like, I'm totally unworthy, but it was just like, fuck it. I want it to be so easy. And so I did those sessions. Obviously, that made me about like $2,000. And then it was like I got to connect to the humans on the other side of the screen. I think every
Yeah.
entrepreneur knows what it can feel like to scream into the void and be like, I'm showing up every day. Is anyone listening to me? And to get to do those sessions, one, I'm a bomb ass fucking coach. And so the results and everything that happened in those sessions refueled me. Connecting to people who truly love my work, need my work, are impacted by my work was such a beautiful motivation. And, I think that those things just then sort of I'm doing hands like a snowball effect. The snowball going down the hill, right? It just gets bigger and bigger. And, that poured over into my existing one-on-one clients and my confidence, and a couple of them re-signed. I signed on a new one-on-one client, and so I ended up having like a 22K month in January, which is
Yes.
very nice and good for just giving a little juice in my tank. And I think really, even now, a few months out of it, it is this journey of growing into my like devoted, almost like mother version of business, where
Mm.
it is about rooting in deeper into the purpose and the legacy and the why, more so than I do my ego. And that
Yeah.
feeling like what's actually going to fulfill me and sustain me in the long term. And yeah, because of that too, also because of your coaching and all of that, like I really decided to double down on just selling my one-on-one coaching. And for anyone listening to this, I had fun classes like BJ blowjob classes. I had group programs. I had orgasm programs that were like so fun and shiny. I had a program called School of Super Pleasure. I, had all of the things and they were successful. But I think something about maturing in my entrepreneurship, and this applies to all of life, is just to really be like, what season am I really in now? And doing
Mm.
the work it takes to be like, what do I really need? What does my business really need? What does my body of work really need? And I think right now it's working really intimately with people. I think getting
Yeah.
into the deep transformation to have my body of work emerge through applying the work with people in a really deep and intimate and long-term way. I just know and I trust that like future courses, future things, my whole body of work is going to be born through this. And also the podcast, right? Like I
Yes.
feel like that's also a deeper mother devotion, because a podcast it's more depth, it's more longevity. It's not the quick hits of Instagram. It's not the quick hits of like, each post or making a reel or anything like that. Although all those things take work too.
Yeah.
But I've really devoted myself to like birthing that in this past month, because there is this like, I am that tree. These are the fruit. This is the longer, deeper body of work that I want to give to the world. And so, yeah, that's like the journey. And you and our Magic Mind community and everything have just been such a big support through it. Um, but yeah, well, I haven't recapped it like that, but I really hope it's helpful, because I think there's so many
Yeah.
aspects of that people don't talk about in business.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable and honest and open and sharing. I think the more that we can be honest about these moments of entrepreneurships and the ebbs and the flows, the more we normalize being human in business and navigating the waves of business, right? Where it isn't always just like start your own business, connect to your pleasure, the end, happily ever after, right? It's like we're so used to like every Disney movie is like they get married and then happily ever after, like everything's good after that. It's like, no, you find your purpose and then there's still waves and lessons and quantum crumbling, things falling to the ground, life being rearranged, right? And we're still always constantly learning lessons upon lessons upon lessons of what you said earlier, like life happening through you and for you and about you, right? And the work and the medicine and the magic. And so that comes through massive shifts and up levels, and it doesn't always just feel like clouds parting and rainbows coming out of your ass. It's like sometimes it really is like bring you to your knees moments in life, right? And I've done the best that I can and will continue to always be very open on this podcast as well as in all of my work about those moments of like, hey, this launch did not go the way I thought this would, or this project, this thing completely flopped, or this I put this out there and I felt so disappointed and so discouraged. It's like these are the natural waves of emotions of entrepreneurship, and it's not about bypassing them, and it's not about pushing them to the side or ignoring them. It's about how can we hold that more? How can we hold more of it and talk about it and normalize it? And when we allow there to be expanded capacity for these emotions and for these waves, then we also have the ability to bring it to spaces like a mastermind, a coaching container, right? A one-on-one mentor where Anne didn't just suffer in silence. She brought it to us. She brought it to me to get coached on, to get support, to just be loved and witnessed and held, honestly, right? As she moves through this. And there's so much power in just releasing and, bringing this to a space where that you're going to not be judged. That you're going to be in an environment where you will be challenged to grow and to up level, right? And also what I want you to see here too is it's not that Anne or anyone in this position really is like, okay, well, let me just implement this perfect strategy that's like a 5-step formula. And this one thing that Anne did, it's like, this is why I really don't spend a lot of my time teaching specific strategies because they're always shifting and changing, right? What Anne did was she listened to the spirit of her business and she listened to her intuition. She listened to what felt most right and what felt simplest, right? That's something we worked on a lot is like, how can we let sales be easy? How can we let things be simple, right? The path of least resistance. Like it isn't the craziest, most complicated, advanced, like 4-step, 5-step, 6-step thing that we can all plug together. It's like, this just feels alive for me today, and this is what I can feel like I can do today. I'm going to do that thing, and then there you go, right? It's the foundation of the energetics, the foundation of not necessarily being happy or excited or high vibe, but more so I'm really connected to my movement. And even if I'm not feeling 100 right now, I'm still connected to my movement. And what Anne said of like, being connected to her clients from day one, right? So what is that greater movement? Because when we just focus on the money and we focus on the money and we focus on the money, we hope that the money just expands that way, but that's actually not how money expands at all. And that hasn't been my experience at all. Money has always been a byproduct of me loving my clients so fiercely and over delivering and spending a lot of time coming up with really great ways of teaching, of stories, of analogies, of programs, containers, concepts, so they can root in this work and not just say, wow, Tiffany, that was really good, but oh, wow, this is where I am now being influenced to shift in my own life. And now I'm going to take that and expand it in my own community, in my own business. That is what, true, life-changing, perspective shifting leadership should be like and should embody. And yeah, just hearing that, from your perspective and everything you've moved through, like, yeah, and that's so 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 beautiful. Yeah, anything to add on that before we
I
go
mean,
into the
I
last?
just want to thank you for your leadership. I mean, I remember listening to podcasts of you talking about these things, talking about changes you made and the emotions that you moved through. And that was so much of what made me feel safe bringing it. And
Mm.
yeah, I just am so grateful for your leadership in the container that you hold and the way that you really do walk us through in in sex and love and motherhood and business, like all of the real, and so
Yeah.
anyone listening to this, I mean, I know you already love Tiffany, but just to reflect back to like your genius, and yeah, for everyone to know like you are someone who does have that perspective and can hold that. And I think that's so important to have people in your corner and in your side that do have this really holistic view, this very real view, and that can hold, especially if you are like us who are soul led, heart led, very feminine leaning entrepreneurs, to have someone who can really understand that side of you and be on your team. And I also feel like the rest of the community in Magicmind has been that too. And you cultivated just such a beautiful I would say your gift I see is you really know how to build community into containers. And I think you really built this community of hey, like we're not here just to I asked you this on our sales call for Magicmind. I'm like, I don't really want to be in a space where it's like, okay, I'm just getting in line to get my coaching and like I'm sort of like tuned out, like I was ready to be in a season where I actually was connected and invested in the other people's businesses. And I think
Yeah.
through you encouraging us to peer coach one another, having the type of calls where we could unmute and all support each other, and you're not the only coach in the room. It really was this like matriarchal, we're in a circle, we're equals. Obviously, like you're also our leader in ways, but um I just think that is such a big part of your genius and such a gift that you
Mm.
gave through this. So I do want to make sure to like speak to that and give you gratitude for that too.
Oh, and thank you so much. That means so much to me because that's truly like, and I've gone through iterations and rounds of Magic Mind where, the first couple rounds and navigating like client feedback and, oh, how can I create more of this? Oh, I feel like the community's starting to bloom, but how can I, build? And that's just a part of being a leader is like, what kind of spaces do you want to create? And what kind of culture do you want to build in your team, in your containers, with your clients, with your work? It's like it's been an evolution. So this round of everyone saying like I love everyone in this container. Like every single student is like, every time we talk about Magic Minds, like I love everyone. Like I love everyone so much. Like I don't want this container to end. Like everyone's so amazing. Everyone's been really honest. Everyone's been so vulnerable. Everyone's brought all of themselves to this container. Like I can't think of anyone who's like, oh, I'm just going to do my own thing. Like everyone's like, yeah, I love and care about every one of you. I'm going to bring myself to the space and I'm going to allow myself to be held and also challenged. And I'm also going to hold you all. You all are going to feel my love.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful space that like I think as women do that so beautifully, like just being in women's circles and women's communities and spaces. It's like, that's our magic, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely the most feedback that I've ever gotten too from other people on my work and my
Mm.
copy and like their encouragement, out of I think maybe any of maybe the masterminds or groups that I've been in before. They've all been great in their own ways. But particularly, I think the specific feedback of knowing that these people are intimate with my work, intimate with me. Literally, like, I just want to give a really practical example. Like, I was nervous about launching my podcast, and you so graciously, Tiffany was like, okay, I'm gonna go through your Instagram and we could probably pull a bunch of topics that would be really cool. And like, here are things that I would really want to hear from you. And
Yeah.
like, that meant so much to me. And you posted it in our group thread to be like, okay, everyone, go to Anne's Instagram and tell her, like, and it just, I think that vibe, that like true caring, that level of feedback was just something that really blew me away. It meant so much to me. And I think anytime you're embarking on a really big project, like being on a podcast, you're always like, oh, do I have anything good to say? Does anybody care? Like, and you reflected to me even aspects of myself that I had judged, like, oh, no one wants to care about that. That's just like a side piece of me or whatever. And
Yeah.
it was just such a beautiful experience. So yeah, if
Mm.
anyone's thinking about working with you, like fucking do it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you for reflecting that back to me as well. I'm always talking about how business it's the holistic, right? Holistic meaning whole, like holistic, right? All of you. And I think, going back to like Tiffany, how do you build a successful business? What is your strategy? What do you do? It's like my strategy from the beginning has been I'm going to be brave. I'm going to share these parts of me and I'm going to love fiercely, right? And still to this day and for the rest of my life and my business, that is truly like that is an energy that cannot be that can't be like disguised, right? You feel it when you enter a container and when you enter a working relationship with someone or it's not quite there. And of course you could talk about aligned fits and what you're looking for and things like that, always coming from a very sovereign place, investing and accepting clients. But yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things is like, oh, I can't stop thinking about my clients and students and what would be supportive. Like it's the weekend. I'm like, oh, Anne and I coached on this thing and I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about that. Or something came up with Brooke or Taylor or Joe or Daria or whatever. It's like I'm constantly thinking about like, what can I do to be a better coach and how can I collapse time for them and how can I help create work and magic and coaching that's even more supportive in less time. And yeah, I think that, going back to like business as the whole woman and, all these parts of us being interconnected, it's like when we are truly in alignment with that and grounded in that, that gets to lead versus, oh, let me share with you the exact things I did from 2020 when I started my business all the way to now. It's like that wouldn't even work for anybody else because the strategy is always shifting, but our heart led, energetics led, intuitively led way of showing up gets to be alive in that exact moment for what it gets to be, right? And that's really what my work is shifting even deeper into. So yeah, that's so beautiful. Oh, thank you for this conversation. This has been
Yeah, thank
so
you.
beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing your heart and sharing, who you are as a whole leader and bringing that to the space and being a part of Magic Mind. And yeah, it's just been so beautiful witnessing your evolution and your growth. And this is just the beginning. Like, this is just the beginning. There's eons and light years to come. So yeah, I just want to close with that. Yeah, one last question before we jump into where we can find you, working with you, all of that juicy stuff, your podcast. By the way, everything will be in the show notes for Anne, and I'll also let her share that too. But are there any other, anything that you want to bring to the space that maybe you had in mind that you're like, oh, I really wanted to talk about this on the podcast today? Anything else that's coming up there? And any other kind of takeaways from our work and the community and Magic Mind that you also want to share with the podcast as well?
Yeah, I think maybe when it comes to Magic Mind, yeah, just the community in there was so great. I think to also be in a space that was diverse and to feel like I could just talk freely about all of the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I care about without self-censorship, without worrying about like, is this secretly like a spiritually bypassing like kind of person who doesn't have my back? Like that
Yeah.
was really, really powerful. And I think that the only other thing I want to say is that if you're here and you're someone who is on a journey of dating, oh my God, we didn't even talk about dating, girl. It's a
Part
whole,
two.
I
We'll do
love
another one.
about dating. But if you're on the path of, calling in more love, falling in love with your own sexuality, falling in love with your sensuality, trying to figure out how to have better sex, better orgasms, like I just want you to know that it's one of the most beautiful journeys that you could go on. And definitely keep on going on it. And yeah, if you ever wanted to, you called it this when I was describing my work, collapse your timelines, or to
Yes.
be held in a container where we can do really deep somatic work to expand your nervous system to be able to actually hold more love and more
Mm,
pleasure, more orgasm, more self trust in your system to have great sex, to call in and create the most like soul bursting relationships that you could. Um,
mm.
you should reach out to me and we can work together.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And truly, if you're listening to this episode and you've had, if you've had a breakthrough, a perspective shift, something Anne said, like broke something open in you, like don't just ignore that and move forward. Like, really drop into, okay, what is my intention here? What am I feeling? How do I want to explore this? Right. And Anne is such a vessel and portal of wisdom and guidance and also deep grounding love, being able to hold that space. The work that she does with her clients is out of this world. So definitely go and check her out. Just send her a DM. Like you can have that conversation and explore that together. Yeah. And if you got something out of this podcast, like please share it on your stories, tag Anne, tag me, let us know what you got out of this. The more that you share, the more that we are able to spread our magic and medicine with more women and more humans in this space who need it and want to connect deeper with their pleasure, with their purpose, with their power. So yeah, thank you. This has been so beautiful. And will you wrap up and just share how we can find you and connect with you and work with you?
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at the Nguyen at TheAnnNGUYEN. My podcast, I believe we're launching it in 2 days on Wednesday.
Oh my
Releasing
gosh.
episodes on Hump Day is Love, Sex, and Pleasure with Anne Nguyen. That's the name of the
Oh,
podcast.
so
And I
good.
also have a free practice that you can download. It is a free guided breast massage, which is my foundational practice I teach to every single person. And breast massage is this Taoist practice that helps you connect with the pleasure of your breast, but also, especially your heart center, clearing things, blockages in your heart, and expanding your heart center for more love, more connection to your body, and more ability to receive love. And that will
So
also
good.
get you on my newsletter, which is the shit. And yeah, that's where you can find me and my work.
Beautiful, and I will be downloading that too. Sounds amazing and delicious. So, yeah, and then all of that's gonna be in the show notes, so just scroll down. This is the description in the episode, so you'll see all of Anne's links there and the free resource. You just click through and maneuver through it and just reach out to her if you have any questions, breakthroughs, takeaways, all the good things. So, thank
Yay.
you again, Anne, for being on this episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your wisdom and your magic. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for being here. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. If this episode resonated with you, please take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, and tag me at tiffanychung.co. I truly appreciate interacting with every one of you. Catch you all on the next one.